March the 6th, 2019. As you're looking at images from today of our sun, and this is from the Solar Dynamics Observatory, it's one of the links at the very top left of our channel next to earthquakes. Seen a couple things here. The first sunspots that you see both in the upper hemisphere and the southern hemisphere of the sun are starting to grow. This is the first ones that have appeared in, I think, over 33 days. It's been a very spotless sun actually going on now for a couple of years because of grand solar minimum. Activity decreases. Now, I've said this before. When you correlate the orbit of the sun's binary twin, some people don't accept that theory, but it's a gas giant. And so is Saturn. But Jupiter is the binary twin of our sun because the Jupiter does not orbit the sun the way the Earth and the other planets do. It's so large, has so much mass, that the sun and Jupiter, and you can look this up, actually rotate from a point outside the surface of the sun where their gravity matches. And you've got 11.8 year approximate orbit of Jupiter. You've got about 11.8 year solar cycles, and we're going into the lower end of solar cycle 24. We're going to be going into 25, and but each peak of those solar cycles, guys, during these grand solar minimums is weaker and weaker. Now, the other thing you're looking at in the darker areas here and in these areas and on the southern pole, they're called coronal holes, and they're openings in the magnetic canopy of our sun. And when that happens, guys, the solar wind that is normally picked up, or the solar energy that's normally picked up in these magnetic fields that you see looping over this sunspot, guys, they pick it up and return it to the surface. But in these open areas, it flows freely. Now, the SDO satellite that we're looking at now gives us an Earth-facing view. In other words, just looking at the sun from the Earth, from the side the Earth is constantly. It orbits with us. It gives us these views. Now, what's interesting is we're entering into a solar wind stream pattern. It's going to peak on the 8th. Today's the 6th. And what happens when you see a sunspot that's directly facing Earth, say in the center, then it's about 2 days, depending on the solar wind speed, before it hits our planet. So we're starting to get the buffering already from these openings that you see on the right. Again, it's given a couple of days for it to get here. We had a pretty strong surge, and it gave us a 6.3 down in Chromatic Islands and a rare 3.4 in Tennessee. Guys, that has a couple of double implications in the sense that you're dealing with areas north of the New Madrid Fault, but you're dealing with the very edge of the North American Craton. The last time that shifted, we had a 5-point-something quake, guys, and people were dashing. It cracked the Washington Monument, and there's videos of people trying to run down the stairs with debris falling. Imagine that if you've ever seen the height of that obelisk. But it shook, guys, and people felt it for a long way away. And I've got friends all through the Tennessee area, and we'll take a look at the location of that. But again, this is going to continue and peak on about the 8th, the solar wind stream. We'll keep an eye on those small sunspots because our shields are so weak that even the 500-kilometer burst that we picked up earlier today in solar wind speed caused 2 quakes. It caused the shifting in the ring of fire that we normally see in the Chromatic Islands, but we don't normally see the Craton shift as we did in Tennessee. Now, this is our solar wind speed. This is pretty much coming in live data. But here, as we peaked around 12 o'clock today, this would be UTC time. This was a spike of, you can see here, 500, 502. That's kilometers per second. That's, you're looking at, guys, over 1.2 million miles per hour. And you can see it was just cruising along here at around 375, dropping, raising. Suddenly we caught that first spike. That's when you see the pressure on the plates. Again, the North American Craton is very hard to shift. If you go to our website, the link that I'm talking about is right here, SDO, Solar Dynamics Observatory. Your earthquakes are here, and we've added the Schumann resonance live monitoring here. A lot of information on that site. But guys, I've posted, this is from yesterday when the sunspots were forming. But if you come down in the comments, I've just posted this just as I was getting ready to do the video, because this is instant. And what we're seeing, the solar wind speed here. And guys, on these images in the chat room, all you got to do is click on it and enlarge it. So again, with that solar wind speed peak, or that spike, we saw the 6.3 here, under 9 kilometers deep. And then we had the quake here. There's another chart right there in the comment section, a little more detail. One in Tennessee. What they're saying is a 3.4 magnitude, 9 kilometers northeast of Maynardville, Tennessee. It wasn't that deep, 17.1 kilometers. So some of my friends there in that area or surrounding area may have felt that 3.4. But you're dealing with, again, the North American Craton. Major problems when this thing shifts. Sometimes you'll just see a quake like this and won't see anything for a while. Then suddenly, this is what happened back when it hit the 5.1. It hit DC. It shook a lot of things in that area. But you have to watch the Craton, because I think this very southern tip of the Craton broke off when we had the New Madrid fault. And the Craton, guys, is a huge rock that the U.S. sets on, goes up into Canada. And then on the outer edges, you've got millions of years of places where, it was, like in Arizona and all, that was once oceans. But that's separate landforms. And you have faults in those areas. We'll take a look at it. But again, my friends in Tennessee, come over to BP Headline News or comment on this video and let me know if you felt this thing. Now, this is just a basic map of the Craton. It's got to the basins and domes inside the Craton, but it runs through this area. These are the outer edges here. This is the central part. It's part of the Canadian Shield. But notice it runs up the Appalachian chain, and it also has a deformity here in the bottom, in the very area of the New Madrid Fault when the Mississippi River ran backwards. So a lot of damage done. If anything like that happened today with the population we have now, there would be a lot of trouble in that area. But again, when we see the quakes in Tennessee moving along this Appalachian Fault, that is what's called the North American Craton. These areas on the outside were formed from wash from mountains over millions of years, and they were at one time a shallow seabed. If you look up the maps of the different eons of this planet. And just looking at this Google map, guys, you can see to where your Appalachian chain runs northeast. That's along the edge of the Craton. You can see all these rifts where it's pushed and been tugged. And here, where it normally ran here and across and back up, there's a great indention here. You had the Mississippi River run backwards. You had some lakes that were formed. But this is where I feel like they don't talk about it a lot, but where the southern tip of the Craton broke in this area, and we had that New Madrid quake, guys. If you haven't studied it, which I'm sure most of you have, look up that and look at some of the images of how the Earth shifted at that time. It's amazing how the ground was pushed up at different angles and trees and everything. It was for hundreds of square miles. I'm going to back out and play part of the video of the last time it shifted and look at the images coming out of Washington, D.C. and the Washington Monument. Guys, it's a heads up. Check it out. Again, keep your eyes open till after the 8th.
That's not a game. Yeah, Swiss Channy Elster.